In today's video, I'm going to talk about what the ego really is and how you can actually master it. And I'm really going into depth here so that you won't need another video explaining you some half-ass shit about it again. You will have the concept of it down. So let's dive straight in. What is the ego? Well, the ego is what is created over time. So it is a false sense of self that we have, and we confuse it with the I, so who we really are. And this ego, it keeps on talking inside of our head. So it keeps making up all of these stories that we have about ourselves, about people, about all the things around us. It keeps telling you all of these lies, and it just never shuts up. And you have no control over it. So it controls you instead. And before you say that's not you, or you're not talking in your own head, believe me when I say it never stops talking. You just got used to the background noise. You're just living with it by now, right? And I'm gonna prove it to you. Try sitting in a room by yourself in silence for 3 to 5 minutes. Let's see how long it can actually shut up for. And it takes practice, right? I'm sure it barely takes a minute for yours to start talking again. And what I mean by start talking again is your very first thought is the thing that interrupts the silence. And I mean, you can pause this video right now and try it out. So close your eyes and be silent internally for 3 to 5 minutes. Let me know how it goes. Now, back to the ego though. Different cultures and schools of thought give it various names, right? In Buddhism, it's called the monkey mind. In science, it's the reptilian brain or even basal ganglia. In religious or spiritual context, some might even refer to it as the devil, if you would say. I would simply define it as our false sense of self, right? But essentially, they are all describing the same thing. And the ego is the part of you that's locked into your physical senses, your sight, your hearing, your taste, your touch, and your smell. So the ego serves your base desires, and it is often seeking that immediate satisfaction, right? That instant gratification, just like an untamed animal. And very much like an untamed animal, it needs to be domesticated. So your ego has to be tamed. Otherwise, it will control you, which leads to impulsive behaviors and decisions that are simply not aligned with your higher self. So the ultimate goal here is to make your ego work for you, not against you. So our ego is there to make us feel stable in the world, right? When in reality, it actually causes all of our pain. So it forces us to create this I, which follows certain rules and goes by a certain self-image, which is completely false. It's fake, we are fake, right? And don't say no, I know you are, be honest. And it's exactly this which creates the pain so that we can live, and it makes us feel bad about ourselves. It constantly distracts us. It causes feelings like anxiety or guilt, jealousy, comparison, remorse, and so many others. And this is what we deem as normal in our society nowadays, when it is absolutely not, because it's fake. So the ego is there to give us a sense of ourselves. However, we use it so wrong. We were and still are conditioned and also continue to condition ourselves to have absolutely no control over it and over ourselves. When in reality, we can make our ego our greatest asset. It's supposed to be our best friend and not our enemy. And this is also something these new woke people often get wrong. The ego is not supposed to be our enemy. It is not this super bad and evil thing. Of course it is bad when it's working against us, but have you seen what it can do when it works for us? Let's take professionals in sports, for example. Do you think, apart from their obviously gifted talent, that someone like Cristiano Ronaldo or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal or even David Goggins, you name them, if they would have made it this far, if they had let their ego taken over control of them? No. No way in hell they would have done that. They would still be nobody. They would probably be talented to some degree, but they wouldn't have worked their asses off like that to get somewhere and change their reality, literally change what life, literally change the deck of cards that life had dealt them. And for my girls, it's the same with women like Serena Williams, Simone Biles, Steffi Graf, or even the first woman to ever run and finish a marathon. I think she was named Catherine Switzer, before women were even allowed to participate. Do you think they would have reached what they wanted if they wouldn't have made their ego their greatest asset to push themselves to excellence? Most probably not. And believe me, it's not easy to tame the ego. It isn't done in a short amount of time. And as we so beautifully say so, Rome was not built in a day. It takes time, but more essentially, it takes work. And that's what people tend to forget. And the reason why it's hard for us to recognize it as a problem is because the ego also poses as a solution. So it's creating pain, it's creating this problem, and then it offers you a solution, which is just another problem in disguise, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say you are absolutely tired and you feel lazy. So your ego comes up with a solution. Hey, how about you lie in bed, you take care of yourself, you just need to rest, take a nap, watch some Netflix, scroll on your phone, scroll on TikTok, and you will feel better after. You will feel well rested. Right? When in reality, let's face it, you're only tired in the first place because you have shitty habits like a bad sleep schedule, a disorganized daily life, don't drink enough water, don't move enough, so you lay down too much, you don't eat proper and fueling foods, right? And the solution could be so simple. Take care of those things. Instead, you feed into those lazy and undisciplined patterns. You feed your ego and continue these unhealthy behaviors by adding more unhealthy distractions onto it. And soon enough, you don't even see the first problem anymore because you're adding too many more onto it. And again, the longer you leave an animal out in the wilderness, the harder it gets to tame it again. Now, when it comes to an ego of this size, with it come defense mechanisms. Because just like our lies, we defend our ego like no other, right? To protect our feelings. And the ego is never sure about its feelings. It's insecure constantly. So it feels the need to defend itself at all cost to prove itself right. Let me give you another example. Somebody is talking shit about you and spreading lies. The real you knows it's not true. And because they are lies, you don't feel the need to defend yourself. You just let people talk. You let them do their ego thing, right? But not your ego. The ego fights with all its might to try and defend itself and go against it. Because it immediately feels unsafe and very threatened, right? It feels like you're about to be exposed. And that is why sometimes people lash out at you for no freaking reason because their ego feels attacked by something that is so ridiculous, but to them, it's an active danger, right? So there are good defense mechanisms and there are bad ones. Some are helpful, most are hurtful though. So let's take acceptance, acting out. You have avoidance, denial, humor, humility, intellectualization, rationalizations, projection, repression, self-serving bias, comparing, wishful thinking, blaming, passive aggressiveness, just to name a few now, right? But you see, the ego doesn't want to be wrong. It wants to survive. And if it has to build a fake identity to protect itself, it will. Even if it means sabotaging your growth. Even if it means keeping you stuck, bitter, small, defensive. It would rather keep you in a fake sense of safety than allow you to grow into your truth, because that truth would expose just how much of your identity was based on fear, on wounds, on fakeness, on lies that you were told or taught, right? So how do you master the ego? You observe it without reacting to it. You notice when it kicks in, when it wants to lash out, when it starts justifying your shitty habits, when it feeds into comparison, when it craves validation, when it craves following these unhealthy patterns and continuing these unhealthy habits, when it pulls you into victimhood, into this victim mentality, into self-pity, and instead of arguing with it or letting it take the wheel and continuing that behavior, you just simply see it for what it is, a protective mechanism. Not a villain, not a monster, just a scared part of you that learned how to survive and now needs to learn how to evolve. So you don't master the ego by silencing it. You master it by no longer identifying with it, by no longer mistaking its voice for truth, by no longer following its command like a mindless puppet, right? You learn to say, I hear you, but I don't need you to lead me anymore. I know I feel scared, but I am safe now. I've got this, right? You've got yourself. Mastery is not ego death. It's ego leadership. So it's making the conscious you stronger than the conditioned you. It's staying awake when the ego wants you to sleepwalk, okay? So here's what you need to understand. The ego will always exist. It will always try to protect you. But it's up to you to decide, are you going to let it run your life? Or are you finally going to be the one in control? So here's what you need to understand. The ego will always exist. It will always try to protect you. But it's up to you to decide, are you going to let it run your life? Or are you finally going to be the one in control? Because until you make that choice, you are not really living. You are just reacting. You are lazy reacting. And to quote Carl Jung here, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate.